tubular vortex.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 17th episode of Shot of Nostalgia, where we continue our dive down into 1996 WCW NITRO Dead Air, and we are getting to the best of the best as always. I'm good old Mike Belcaster, hanging out with my homie from another bromie, this beautiful gentleman right here.
Stephen ACEFIELD, the ace of the tavern, live from the No Cell Studios on a Friday, getting ready to dive deep into the history of wrestling. And we have a guest here again, our third man, a different third man, but the NWO is growing, brother. What's up, Chad?
Dude, I'm happy to be here. I love this little trip down memory lane I took watching these Nitros. I'm excited to get into it with you guys.
And I'm feeling like I'm seeing more 1996 all over my Instagram feed. It might just be coincidence, but I keep seeing some results. I know someone shared a Psychosis versus Eddie Guerrero match from 1996.
Yep.
Happens to be the match we covered tonight. So it's funny. It feels like there's a little serendipity going on in the wrestling community with 1996.
Yeah, no, I seen somebody posted about the Super Show with Japan the other day, and I was like, the word's getting out there.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
But so as you guys all know, we are reviewing the July 22nd and the July 29th episodes of Nitro, and they're big episodes to talk about. And as you know, as you come into this week, we'll always be reviewing 2, sometimes 3 episodes. We have a Clash of Champions that is coming up, and Clash of Champions is kind of apropos of what's going on in AEW because Battle of the Belts. There was some criticism on the flagship about Battle of the Belts, as well as on the AEW wrap-up show about how there's no different feel to it. So, Chad, if you want to touch on that a little bit with Clash Champions and what made it special back in the day.
I mean, back in the day, when they would break out a Halloween Havoc or a Starrcade, and WWE did this too. Like, every show had its own unique stage entrance. The big pumpkin. We all remember that from the Halloween Havocs. They would have the tombstones out. With AEW, man, I think that's a thing. And sure, it's a nitpicky small detail, but I really feel like every show kind of being just a carbon copy of Dynamite with the 2 tunnels, and maybe they change up the lighting packages. Like, I know it's a small detail, but it's those the devil is in the details. Those tiny details make you feel like something is special. And with Clash of the Champions, man, like, I wasn't a kid that got every WCW pay-per-view. Me and Sneed grew up in WCW country. That's who came and gave us house shows and nitros and all of that. So we got to attend that stuff, but my parents weren't rushing out to buy pay-per-views for me. I had to beg for that shit. So Clash of the Champions was like a pay-per-view for us. And a lot of times I believe they were at least 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours long, and they felt special. They had the ramp that went all the way down to the ring. And the biggest thing, and it's a very, I think they had moved past it by the time 96 rolled around. But those early 90s Clash of the Champions where they had the tinsel curtain with the off-kilter huge WCW logo, dude, that hits me in a feel spot like a lot of wrestling things do not. And man, if AEW was to just take a little bit of that, take the tunnels away for a Battle of the Belts, throw that tinsel-y curtain down with the AEW kind of off-kilter, man, that would do it for me. So yeah, you need to differentiate your shows.
We see a lot with the differences and the similarities between WCW, but what we can tell is that Tony Khan was more of a WCW kid growing up because of the way he books. And I don't think anyone would find it as a parent unless you did this ride with us, because a lot of what we're seeing is very conducive to how a Nitro would run. So it's very funny as we're watching Dynamite live in action, the build to All Out, and also how Nitro's building towards Hog Wild.
Now, do you think Tony Khan was more of a WCW kid, or do you think as a businessman entering a space with WWE, that's just a way for him to differentiate himself from the Stanford product, is to, instead of taking nods and inspiration from a company that's still doing it. He's taking it from the companies that went defunct, like the ECWs and the WCWs.
It's a fair question. I would say, I mean, based on interviews that he's done, it seems like he is more of a WCW fan growing up, but it seems like he is a very varied wrestling fan. He was a tape trader. He's been at all these shows. I mean, he was at the New Japan ROH show at MSG. So he's pretty cultured as a wrestling fan. I think maybe if you boil it down, he's probably just a wrestling fan at heart, but I think he loves WCW more than a lot of bookers used to, if that's answering the question.
Yeah, I think he's a big Bischoff fan too, and I think his heart's a little broken that they've got this beef going.
Yeah, and also Jim
totally
Cornette
agree.
too.
Yeah.
Yep.
100%. I think you see as time goes by, and a lot of decision making going on with AEW. You kind of can tell that Tony Khan is in that WCW mindset. I mean, look at those trios titles. We've talked about it before. Those bad boys are WCW tag titles,
100%.
just revamped for AEW. And I'm not against it. I'm here for it. I'm fucking pumped for it.
Dude, even the regular tag titles give me WCW vibes. Like their belt designs in general, for the most part, all feel like WCW belts, minus the big platinum world title, which kind of gives me New Japan vibes.
Yeah, I kind of get the big gold vibe from it too, though. Like it's got that, like, even though it's
Good point.
AEW's own exclusive thing, it's got that standout, like, this is our title, man. And I think WCW did a great job with that shit.
So we will be talking a lot about AEW as we go on, as we do every week, and comparing it. But let's get into the newsletter and wet our whistles for happy hour.
Poor Dusty.
Always.
Such a great bumper. So we're going to dive into 3 different newsletters, and I had to be very careful about how I picked these because of what happened on Nitro, and we'll talk about that because we want to get the reaction and also the build up to it. But let's first stick with the New Japan guys and also WCW guys working together. And the first of 2 nights in Sapporo on July 16th, when we saw Randy Savage, Sting, and the Giant from WCW go to New Japan Pro Wrestling, drew a sellout. Giant retained the WCW title, pinning Power Warrior, which is also Kensuke Sasaki, with a chokeslam and a quick match. And the guy was 5'7", by the way, so he looked like an absolute small fry next to the Giant. So he looked very, very strong going into this match, and he kind of buried him. So what do you guys think about the relationship between New Japan Pro Wrestling? I'll let you start with this, Chad, because Mike and I have kind of beaten this to death a little bit. Do you think that Tony Khan's modeled his relationship for Forbidden Door and all those different events after what Bischoff kind of paved the way for, or is it something that's completely separate and we have to treat it as such?
No, I think he definitely drew inspiration from it because he sees that there is it is possible for a major American promotion to work with bigger companies and not kind of degrade what their product is. Because I think Vince was always afraid of like putting another company over. Like we're giving spotlight to another company, where Tony, I think, takes that almost. See, I know there's WCW inspiration, but you got to go almost territory inspiration. True. Where he's taking it back even deeper than WCW. You know, WCW always had the New Japan kind of partnership off and on throughout their history, but yeah, I think he was definitely taking inspiration from it. But I think he's taking that inspiration and he's ramping it up to a level that we haven't seen in decades, where he is so. I remember they were pulling in NWA. You know, Thunder Rosa came in as the NWA champion. You know, they're not afraid to work with a lot of people. The whole Impact title being on Kenny. I think it's good for wrestling to do that. But yeah, he definitely was taking inspiration from Bischoff and New Japan's partnership.
And what was really interesting last week is he had all his stars. It was Randy. It wasn't just like Alex Wright being sent over there. It was the Giant. It was Randy Savage. It was Chris Benoit. It was big names involved in big stories. And it seems following that Bash at the Beach storyline, you think he would have been like, all right, sorry, New Japan, we have to keep our guys here. But he kept his word with it.
Yeah. No, it's impressive. Very awesome. I'm happy to see it. I like the way it's playing out. And it also gives talent more time. Not main card talent, not the Macho Mans, but you get your Eddie Guerrero's a little bit more time. You give your Psychosis, your Rey Mysterios, your Dean Malenkos. They all deserve to be in that kind of space. So these trips to Japan with the bigger stars, I think it kind of makes those situations a little easier to book. You know, you don't feel pressure to get your top guys up there right away.
Yeah, so speaking of top guys, we have Hogan making his first appearance on Nitro last week, and Mike and I covered this in depth because of the fact that they kind of teased us the whole night after 2 episodes of Nitro. They did not lead Nitro with Hogan with all black. Like people think, my memory had Hogan coming out that first night after Bash at the Beach, but no, they waited a whole other week and had him come out the end of the show. So before I get into the reaction, Chad, what's your idea with that booking? Do you disagree with making people wait, or would you have booked it differently?
I think they booked it spot on, man. I don't think you bring him right out. You've got the fucking people are hooked. Hogan just turned bad. You don't need to bring him out immediately. Now today there is a lot of like, you got to ride that wave, you got to keep them hooked. But at that time there wasn't as many options out there to draw eyes away. It was the biggest story pro wrestling had ever seen, and you could argue it's a top 5 biggest story ever in pro wrestling to this day. So the fact that they had Hogan turn bad, they were milking it, man. They were getting every bit of juice out of that squeeze, and they knew you were going to wait and wait and wait to see this guy come out and speak on it, you know? So I thought they did it really well, because I was what was this, 96? I was 13 years old when this happened. So I was like locked in, dude, chomping at the bit, get Hogan out here. I wasn't changing the channel. I think a lot of people were feeling the same way at that time. So I think they nailed it.
So we'll get to in a second about where they did the shows and the reason why. And we talked about it last week, but when Hogan was in the ring, fans were throwing stuff again. And Dave Meltzer noticed that it looked staged on television because it was all empty plastic bottles. But those that were there live said it was definitely not staged. And they were going after fans left and right because fans were nearly getting hit with all the stuff being thrown, since it was in Disney. It wasn't in Daytona in an arena. It was in Disney. So they wanted it to be more of a family environment. They were trying to make Hogan look heel, but 60% of the crowd was cheering him. And he turned himself into a heel with his interview, trying to just hate on people in there, trying to use cheap tactics, because we talk about it today. We love to cheer the bad guys, and it's hard for WWE to ever truly turn someone heel, or even AEW in that regard, because even though Kenny Omega was the most dastardly heel in character, we all truly love him. And I think it was the same in 1996 with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I think you get a blind audience like a theme park, and they're seeing this guy that they've seen for years being the good guy. They go into it blindly, but I'm pretty sure a lot of those guys were just throwing shit to throw shit. I think they were really pissed off about it.
Yeah.
The dastardly Hulk Hogan tactics that were going on at the time. So awesome to see these Walt Disney fans revolting against Hulk Hogan. I think it adds so much to the story, man.
So as we know, all of them are in Japan. We mentioned Sting, Flair, Savage, Giant were all gone. And Meltzer kind of notes the negativity around that, where WCW commentary team, I should say, really buried their own talent, because the entire show, the announcers kept saying the only one left was Luger, since he was the one doing the angle with Hogan and everyone else. So it's kind of burying the rest of the roster, which I didn't pick that up when I was watching. It did not feel that way. And Mike and I spoke about it. It didn't feel like they were missing, because the roster was pretty deep and there was a lot going on aside from the champion not being there.
Yeah. I don't think you need that. I mean, you don't need the champion there every week, I don't think.
No.
So they were in Disney, and we talked about this last week, and it was kind of bad timing because of the fact that Atlanta was hosting the Olympics in 1996. The Turner trucks were all otherwise occupied. And Meltzer gives more heat to the Disney studios and says the Disney studio they do Nitro in holds 450 people, and the reservations are full through early August. I don't like the look of the TV show at Disney, because you feel like you're watching a little league baseball or adult softball in these makeshift grandstands. But there isn't much of a choice, since all of the Turner trucks are covering the Olympics. It was a better show than most of the 2-hour shows. So Chad, Mike gave his feedback on the Disney MGM tapings. He liked it. Do you feel like they have a special feel, or is it something that looks minor to you?
Dude, I have this note. It was in my note of the first Nitro from July 22nd that we're going to cover, but this shit makes me so nostalgic for summertime in the 90s. Like looking at all the kids, all the adults, the way they're dressed. I attended Walt Disney World. I know exactly where that stage is set up. I've taken many family vacations there. It gave me such a warm, fuzzy feeling to see these shows. Like, dude, I love when WCW did these shows at Disney. I love when they did what was it, Club La Vila in Panama City with the
parties,
with the water. I mean, that's what made, AEW kind of did that with the Jericho Cruise, but those episodes feel so special to me, and I think they crushed it, man. They're in a bad situation. They had it to work with, and the crowds are maybe just kind of strolling in after taking a ride on the Tower of Terror, but at the same time, it's a cool feeling to go back. And I thought the crowds were kind of hot. It's not like TNA crowds where they were sitting on their hands. I feel like they were pretty into the show.
Yeah, and I think that speaks a lot to the brand name wrestlers that are there. And when Hogan, you hear Hogan's name, and if you're not a wrestling fan per se, you know Hulk Hogan. So I think it was the perfect storm. And they made the best of a bad situation. You could have just kind of cried in your cereal a bit here and said, woe is me, we're not getting the support from Turner. But Bischoff took it as a challenge. And looking back, it certainly doesn't feel like it was an accident. It actually feels special. And it's the first ever outdoor Nitro, which is a string of really special shows that they have outdoors. So it becomes their thing a little bit.
Yeah. No, that second show we covered tonight, I thought the crowd was super hot. I thought it looked great. I thought it was packed, especially compared to the other two we did last week. It really filled out nicely, and it was cool to see. I thought it's such a fucking good vibe.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, would I want to see it there every week? Now, if this was just where they did their shows, maybe I wouldn't be as high on it. But the fact that I know with hindsight that this was just a period of time, I love it.
100%. And, I think you made a good point about the Impact studio and all that stuff, because if Impact only did their shows every once in a while in there, it feels intimate and special. But when it becomes their norm, like WCW could do both. They could have an intimate environment with 450, 500 fans. And then they also can sell out, as we see later in 1998, they could sell out a football stadium for a Nitro. So they're pretty diverse in how they can draw fans. And I think that's the intimate setting feels special. We talk about the GCW venues. Some of the tight feels feel like it's a special event, and it's must see.
Dude, one of the most must-see dynamites, I said it already, the Jericho Cruise.
Oh, yeah.
That's where the Judas sing-along started. And that had such a special vibe. And, 20 years from now, when you go back and watch that Dynamite, it's going to make us nostalgic for this time that we're in now as wrestling fans.
100%. And it was weird. I was like nostalgic for it as I was watching it, because it felt like Nitro, and it felt like those pool parties. And man, when Kenny and Hangman won those tag titles against SCU, that's a memory that will live in my head forever. And it doesn't live in forever if it's not in that environment too, It
was so good too, because during some of those matches where they're on that ship, the wind is whipping up, so people's hair's blowing. It just had this totally like kind of primal vibe where it was outdoors. I loved it.
It's really funny. You talk about that with the outside thing. And there's this famous picture of Rey Mysterio versus Dean Malenko where he's wearing the pink tights when he wins the Cruiserweight Championship last week. And there's this picture of Malenko when the sun is going down. It's like the sun is just right behind him. He's HD as ever, even though it's a 90s television product. It's such a different view of Dean Malenko as you usually would see with the dim of an arena light. It's pretty awesome.
Dean's the man.
Hell yeah.
All right, let's go to the June 29th newsletter. And we're going to cover a little bit with WWF because of the fact we got some fans being unruly in the arena. So the WWF returned to the area of the Cow Palace for a typical house show as part of a West Coast swing. The show was uneventful, but the main topic of conversation being the number of fans kicked out for being out of control. The crowd was generally older than one would expect, particularly the front row, which almost looked like a reunion of people who have been attending Cow Palace shows since the Shire days. There were tons of banners around ringside, and not all of them complimentary. There were several pro WCW banners, including things like Watch Nitro and a guy in a Hogan mask with pro Hogan banners. Belcaster, we talk about pettiness with the management and all the different levels of leadership in both companies. It's interfering with the fans. Is this good for the product to have WCW on your screen? Is it going to make you click and turn the channel?
Man, I think it's great for the product. You got people talking shit. It's going to make you turn the channel, but it's going to make you pick a side and choose what your heart's behind. So be pro Hogan, dude. Sit there doing this during your WWF shows while Shawn Michaels is taking the fucking fall. I think it makes for great television, and you should embrace that kind of shit. I don't like. I always hated going, like, especially nowadays. You go to a WWE show, and like you can't even wear a Young Buck shirt. They'll make you change it. Like anything that's not their product. At least under Vince's realm. I don't know what's going on with the Triple H side of things yet, but I mean, they make you change your shit. You know, we used to bring signs to shows all the time. WWF, you know, we'd go to the Rosemont Horizon, and we'd have Hulk Hogan giving the middle finger and say, you know, NWO for life, brother. And like, I was always a big fan of shit stirring. I think it's good for competition, good for product, man.
It breeds insecurity when you are taking away from the fans. Like, make the fans want to wear your merchandise. If you're putting on the best product, people won't have to bring signs to your show. It just makes everyone step up their game. And the insecurity that's being bred in both companies, it's kind of evident that WWF needs to step up their game, and they eventually do, obviously.
If you're worried about a fan sign or a fucking t-shirt in the crowd, you've got issues, man. That is the least of your concern. You need to be worrying about what is on our screen, not the fans. I don't get it, man.
Yeah.
So we have a Clash of Champions coming up. As I mentioned, we will be covering it next week. So on August 15th, 1996, we'll have Clash of Champions 33. It's going to be headlined by Hulk Hogan, who's now being billed as Hollywood Hogan for the first time, against Ric Flair in the first meeting between the two, where Flair is supposed to be the babyface. The previous Flair-Hogan match on August 24th, 1994 is still the single most watched wrestling match ever on cable television, with the match itself being seen by, get this, we talk about numbers and hear about people watching in homes, 4 million homes, and doing a 6.7 rating and an 11.3 share, built up by doing the Nancy Kerrigan angle during the show. Wow. Think about that number. If you combine AEW and Raw and SmackDown for the week, you wouldn't hit that number. It wouldn't even come close.
No, it's insane, man. And I mean, you're talking two of the biggest names of pro wrestling history. And then you throw Nancy Kerrigan to it. Shit. I see nothing but fucking sales and views, man.
Dollar signs.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, we're going to see it spike even more. I mean, obviously the first time they're going to meet on television and with Hogan and Flair, they never really touch it. It's a missed opportunity we always discuss on with WWF. They never really had it at a WrestleMania. We never got a WrestleMania 8. It was supposed to happen there. I guess they didn't like the way they were working together on the house show circuit or whatever. But man, what a missed opportunity. But man, people want to see them wrestle.
Yeah. You know, Tom was at one of those house shows. He's seen Hogan and Flair wrestle, and he said it was great.
I can't imagine it would be bad. Is it worse than Hogan and Vicious, or Justice, whatever he was going at the time?
It's crazy.
Flair could make anyone look good, man.
Yeah.
Flair
Hogan
is...
at that time too. Like Hogan hitting the big moves and Flair selling. Like that match would just have a big feel. WrestleMania 8 would feel much different if you had that match instead of. Listen, I love Flair Savage, but Hogan Flair was two icons of the business.
Yeah,
they need to face each other.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, so Woman from WCW is scheduled to appear at Triple Mania in Mexico to do an angle that would apparently set up Flair and Arn Anderson coming to Mexico, but that may have already fallen through. I did some research. Never happened. Chad, what do you think about Flair and Arn Anderson potentially working in AAA and having a program there?
I mean, we're kind of seeing it today with FTR holding those AAA titles, that old school wrestling. I think for the time it's kind of... I mean, is it revolutionary though? Like, I want to say it is, because, you know, you've got these two very traditional American pro wrestlers going into AAA, but you got to think, man, Flair cut his teeth on going to Puerto Rico and doing a lot of shows. Now, Puerto Rico maybe isn't, you know, Mexico Lucha Libre, but it's definitely a different scene. I think people forget that Flair, he was the NWA champion. He traveled anywhere. He fought anyone. I think it's awesome that they would go there. I'm all for it.
Absolutely. And we had a really big show this weekend of this in 1996. We're in 1996, guys. Don't worry. On July 21st in Greenville, South Carolina. And it's the final show at the Old Memorial Auditorium, and they're tearing it down, which drew 4,546, which is the 100 shy of the capacity. They pushed the nostalgia hard in selling the show, and it drew a much older crowd than usual for today's wrestling in 1996. The only wrestler on the card who was booed heavily was Randy Savage, who had the misfortune of being booked against Ric Flair, who pretty much everyone came specifically to see. It was described as a Japan-type atmosphere, with the crowd especially into seeing Flair do all his trademark spots, and it was described as the hottest crowd for a house show in Greenville dating back to the heyday of the Jim Crockett promotions. Flair and Savage worked the main event, getting a rock star reaction, calling the building the house that Flair built. Flair's in the news, obviously. We saw that a couple weeks ago. People are a little bit critical, I would say a lot critical of that final match. Watching Flair in 96 puts a lot of context, especially as a fan today. You lose sight of that because people see Flair as a shell of himself in that match, as a shirt wrestler, losing consciousness. But when you look at him in 1996 in the scope of pro wrestling, it's hard to believe how absolutely massive he was to the wrestling business.
Yeah, no, he was the fucking Beatles, man. You know, like he there was Flair pandemonium no matter where he went, especially in the South. We seen that Charlotte show that we covered a couple weeks ago where it was the crowd did not give a fuck what was going on. They just wanted to see the Ric Flair match, and that's Flair country, baby.
And they kept him off the show. Like they refused to put him on the show, and then they had the match the next week because they wanted to keep Flair heel. And imagine the reception he would have gotten in Charlotte. They would have just had him come out.
If you're a fan that's in your 40s, 50s, late 30s, and you're being critical of Ric Flair right now, okay, you can have your opinion, whatever. If you're under the age of 30 and you're critiquing Ric Flair's last match, you need to sit down and let the adults in the room talk. Because, like, this man, yeah, was that match a barn burner? No one expected it to be. But this man, I don't care if he's 80 or 90. If he wants to get into a match, in the ring, wear a T-shirt, do I like him wearing a T-shirt? No. But it is what it is. He's an old man now. He has earned if any pro wrestler, any wrestler in pro wrestling has earned the right to do what he wants to do, it's Ric Flair. He's given his life to this business. I mean, obviously you think of 80s with the long hair, the suits on the set with Tony Schiavone, but 95, 96 Ric Flair with the shortcut. I hate the shortcut. But dude, he's putting on some banger matches. Ric Flair is an icon for a reason. And you know, there's that line, I think it may be LL Cool J, y'all must have forgot. Because this guy he's an icon, man. He's an icon for a reason.
100%.
Mount Rushmore type of stuff. And if you're not doing this ride with us fully in 1996, we're not even seeing the best of Flair either. And he's still one of the best parts of the show. That makes it blows my mind as well. And as I'm sitting there on that night that they had the Ric Flair's last match and we all watched it together, I had this moment for a second, like, wait a minute, this is Ric Flair's last match. As a wrestling fan, how do I not tune in? This is whether it's his last match, part 2, part 3, part 4, you have to tune in. It's historic. Pro wrestling. It's historic.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, how many times are you going to literally watch somebody at the age of 73 who's done everything you fucking could accomplish and then some, still limousine riding, jet flying, you know, Rolex wearing, but he's just I don't know, he's the Elvis of wrestling. Like, there's no better person in the world that you could be like, yeah, we're watching Ric Flair. My mom was watching that match with us, man, and like, you want to shit on the T-shirt. Guy just had open heart surgery. He just got a pacemaker, and he's probably got a scar for miles going down that body.
Yeah. Dude, he's 70. He's probably a little flabby. He's an old man. You're not as tight. Yeah. You know, that's fine. That's fine. Let him do his thing. But man, it's Ric Flair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and in that match, when I watch those matches, not for the match quality, like we said, not for the spectacle of it per se. I watch matches like that for when he first comes out onto that ramp, the look on his face, 40, 50 years of pro wrestling business, all coming to this moment. You're seeing it on a 70-plus-year-old man's face. When he turns around, opens the robe, he's got the big gold belt.
Yeah.
You know, he's earned all of those years, those miles on the road. He earns the right to have that moment. And I'm watching solely to watch him be emotional, to watch him cry like a baby at the end. It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
We saw Vince Scully pass away last week, 93 years old, lived a life. I mean, he's been doing Dodger games since 67 years ago. So it's longevity like no one else could ever match. But I was thinking about it for a second, and I know he lived a long life. And I got Vince Scully is part of my childhood because of watching games growing up. He's been the broadcaster for a lot of different huge moments. Go from the early 90 World Series, 1986, when ball goes through Buckner's legs. There's so much that went on. My point is, there's so much knowledge. There's an encyclopedia of baseball knowledge in Vince Scully's brain. Ric Flair is the same. He forgot more about wrestling than other people even know today. And I think people really need to listen to what he says because he's been in all different eras of the business. You want to talk about the Monday Night Wars. You want to talk about the early territory days. You want to talk about post WWE, working TNA. He's done literally everything. And I mean, people get caught up in the gimmick and all the stuff that goes around it with him in the rap video with Migos and him with his hanging with Snoop Dogg, smoking weed and Mike Tyson and all that stuff. Doesn't change the fact that he is a wrestling encyclopedia that, you know, you got to listen to him. He's the authority here. He's the guy in the room that you need to listen to about wrestling.
And there's a big thing for me with this where it's a tale as a tale as old as time, where out with the old, in with the new. And, you know, you have those new younger fans that they don't really get it. So when he speaks up and says Jericho's a wannabe Ric Flair, Jericho's my favorite wrestler of all time. Ric Flair's probably number 2 or 3, but I get what Rick's saying. You know, and people just want to be like, oh, he's an old, disgruntled old man who can't do it anymore. Shut up. Go sit in the corner and be a pawpaw. But when I hear him, when he says shit like that, what I hear is, dude, there is a lot of wrestlers today that couldn't hold his jock. Yeah. We're not talking about 3-4 shows a week. Those dudes were doing fucking 60-minute Broadways 7 days a week, twice on Sunday. It was a different time. They didn't have doctors. They didn't have doctors checking on you, all the best health. These guys were road warriors. So that generation, I think the younger generation of fans needs to stop chirping at the mouth so much and really brush up on your history and respect those dudes who paved the way for us to have the luxuries of modern day pro wrestling.
100%. Very well said. And when you talked about changing of the guard in times, and we talked about the injuries in AEW, they've been pretty evident. Even at WWE, there's been a lot of string of injuries. And we talked about in the wrap-up show, and I know that others have talked about it in the past. Maybe it's the lighter schedule that's forcing these guys to maybe get hurt a little more often. Even in 1996, it's kind of cropping up for the other reason. And WCW is talking about canceling shows in August because the schedule legitimately is rough and the wrestlers are complaining. So Meltzer says, I can see Ole Anderson rolling his eyes and talking about when he was wrestling 300 dates a year and worked double shots every weekend and on holidays. And then Meltzer said, thank goodness for modern times. If only in 1996 you could know the lighter schedule where Bryan Danielson's working once a month, once every 2 months, when you have a guy like Ole Anderson working 300 dates. You mentioned Flair working hour-long matches on a nightly basis. It truly is a different time. I'm not sure what's better for the wrestlers. Obviously, I would say working a lighter schedule has to be better for you, at least mental health-wise. But there's something to be said about these guys getting hurt. We talked about Malachi with the back injury yesterday. Adam Cole is hurt. Bryan Danielson was hurt. Miro got hurt. Like, there's something about building calluses up for bumps and, like, restarting the clock.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say, man. I think it's good for them probably long-term, but at the same time, like, UFC fighters even talk about this. Like, when they fight more regularly, when they're getting 4 or 5 fights in a year, you get this groove. You alluded to it, Ace. You get this callus built up, and you get in this groove where you're just a well-oiled machine. You're getting 4 or 5 fights a year. Same thing with wrestlers. When you're wrestling 4 to 5 times a week, you're fucking lubed up, man. Yeah. When you're one match a week or one match every 2 weeks, you're going in cold. And how do athletes have injuries? It's when they're not warmed up. It's when they're not in the groove of something. And I think the injury plague that we're seeing is definitely because of the low schedule that a lot of these guys are on now.
I mean, you can say the same thing about baseball. They're more careful than ever with these pitchers as they get called up, and you see more Tommy John surgeries than ever. And it's not because technology is recognizing they are hurting their arms. It's because they've only been throwing limited innings even through high school and college. And yes, you don't want them to blow their arms out, but there's a reason that, Don Drysdale can throw every night, going complete game, where today you have a guy going 5 innings and he's 88 pitches, got to take him out. So I don't know. It's a different mindset.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's all about you get your flow. I remember the first time I ever took a back bump when I was doing indies, setting the rings up, and they were like, "Oh, get in there." First time I ever took a bump, I couldn't breathe for like 10 minutes afterwards. I was like, "Holy fuck!" But the more and more you do it, the more and more you're like, "Damn, this feels good. I need to get back into that." And I'll never forget when I met Mil Mascaris. I took a picture with him. I put my arm around him. His back felt like a fucking pincushion. Like it was all lumpy and shit. But Mil Mascaris, he was still working. It was 2014. I was like, holy shit. And like, he see, let's go. Yes, picture, photo. You're like,
Yeah.
fuck yeah, man. But he's got the body built for it because of how much he worked throughout his time. And I think that's just a standard for pro wrestling, man. You have to stay in your lane. You got to do your bumps. You got to take your shit seriously, man.
Yep. I mean, there's a lot to be said about the types of bumps, and Tom and I alluded to it with Darby Allin. Like Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, those types of bumps you can't do on a nightly basis, and those guys would benefit from having time off. But for the workers that are working the standard matches, the technically sound matches, there's something to be said about it. And I think maybe it's a happy medium. You don't want them working 320 nights a year because it's not healthy for your mental health to do that every single day on the go and all that and traveling. But man, I don't think it should be once every 25 days. I don't think that's going to be conducive to not being hurt. It just can't be.
The 3 to 4 times a week is like a good even flow there. You get your weekends off, you get your time off, you get to go home still. You're not stuck on the road. But like you can't be doing these once a week, once every 2 week matches and expect to not get fucked up because you're not in it, man.
and injuries aside, just scrap the injuries. Put the injuries over in the corner. If you're not plying your trade, how are you going to improve? I think that's a major problem with a lot of companies today on those limited schedules is the growth, the room for growth and improvement takes so much more longer when you're not wrestling as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, very good point. We can have a longer conversation about this. I feel like it'd be a good debate question. So let's mark that in the calendars for actually having a debate because I'm very interested in seeing what everybody thinks about this because Tom and I kind of disagreed on it. But moving on here, there's been people talking about how impressed they are with Psychosis. We saw his Nitro debut last week. And Terry Taylor even called him one of the greatest workers in the history of wrestling already. And the talk among the booking committee is that he has more potential for the U.S. than Rey Mysterio Jr., although done correctly, he doesn't because they are looking at Mysterio Jr.'s lack of size as a drawback, when in fact it's an attribute if used correctly. So Meltzer nailed it. No way he could have predicted how popular Rey Mysterio would be and how successful where he is. And if you look at down the line, 10 years later, he's world champion at WrestleMania, pinning Randy Orton in a triple threat match against Kurt Angle. Obviously, Psychosis has his history of wrestling where he's one of the best Mexican luchadors of all time, but no one's Rey Mysterio.
No.
It's crazy.
Dude, Rey Mysterio, and we'll talk about it, plays a huge part of this episode. There was a lot of heat from the Raw Down guys about they didn't like Rey Mysterio, and I was kind of shocked because maybe I'm just so stuck in right now, but I still remember early 2000s when he debuted. Very memorable, jumping off the cage, landing on Christian and Lance Storm. Ray has all these great moments, even his match with Kurt Angle at SummerSlam 2002. I was there in person. He really paved the way for smaller wrestlers, and I don't think he gets the credit he deserves because look at guys like Adam Cole. He's being taken seriously because a guy like Rey Mysterio was.
True. Very true.
Yeah, and I think Ray, I mean, his run in WWE is really, really great, obviously, but that the run we're in right now on Shot of Nostalgia, this is where the legend is born. Yeah. Like these matches, and I love like some of the feud with Eddie in WWE. A lot of that stuff is great, but dude, when you're putting on matches with Dean Malenko on the regular, Psychosis, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Jericho, Juventud Guerrera, that time, man, I think solidified so many dudes for me. So
Yeah.
I think this is a very, very important piece for him.
Yeah, I always look at Rey Mysterio like if you're gonna pair it to music. Rey Mysterio is like Slayer, like he came out hard in the '80s. Where that's what this 1996 Rey Mysterio is. Yes, they went on until fucking 2020 doing shows and being the badass band that they were. But like, I mean, you still you want the lure of Slayer. You're like, fuck yeah, Slayer. You know, that's what Rey Mysterio is. You still go to a Raw show or a SmackDown to see a Rey Mysterio. Yes, it's not the 1996 Rey Mysterio was, but you still feel it. You're still hyped. You're fucking amped, man.
You can make the argument that Ray is, I mean, not as good, but he's in the better shape for an older wrestler where he's a victim of booking right now. And I think if you put him in anywhere else, if you let him go to AAA New Japan, let him go to G1 and do his thing there. We watched him at a team with Kota Ibushi and go in the main event of All In. So he has shown that he can work with those guys. That's a weird thing people forget. Like he was involved in the birth of AEW kind of in that main event. But yeah, I think he can still go. He's one of the better older wrestlers. People forget how old he is, and he's still doing amazing things in the ring.
Fans are slaves of the moment, and they let the moment dictate their feeling on wrestlers, just their entire body of work. And I think, unfortunately for Ray, he's in a company right now where when you get to that level in the company, you'll have some decent little stories, but they're not going to really invest in you. You're kind of you're the mentor. You're in the mentor role. I think, not to say if he went to AEW or if he went to, New Japan or any of these companies, I think if handled with a different hand in the booking, Rey Mysterio could be putting on absolute barn burner classics to this day. He's a little slower, obviously. He's a little bigger than he was, but he's still got it, man. He's a legend.
Booked as an attraction, I think, and I don't think the fact that he comes out on every week on Raw with Dominic and without Dominic and involved in mid-card storylines, in my opinion, he should be used as an attraction on like that Brock Lesnar schedule. And I know that might be like blasphemous for people to think about, but he is truly... He's a legend of pro wrestling, and I don't think he gets the due he deserves. But if you look at in the grand scheme of things, 20 years from now, people are going to talk about him with such reverence, and I don't think you're able to see the forest through the trees because you're so far right now. Everyone's in it. They're like, oh, he's being booked kind of lame, but what he's accomplished in wrestling in 1996, if he would have retired in 99, people would still remember him as a legend, and he's went on for another 20 years.
As it stands right now, I think the history books show him as the greatest luchador to ever do it. As it stands, not to say someone may come and take his throne, but right now, if the history books were closed, Ray is, in my opinion, the greatest luchador to ever wrestle.
Yeah, it's a hard argument, man.
By some chance, he picked that mask out of a pile somewhere, and someone designed it for him. Who knew how legendary it would become?
Right.
And the mask become identity, and you can talk about all the guys. Psychosis' mask is legendary. Penta's mask at this point is legendary. Ray Phoenix's mask is legendary, but man, that mask of Rey Mysterio, that's synonymous with Lucha Libre in the United States, at least.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll get to Rey Mysterio in 1 second and everything that went down with him, but the WCW tag titles changed hands twice over the weekend. On July 24th in Cincinnati, in what was originally scheduled as a non-title match, Rick and Scott Steiner beat Harlem Heat when during a pre-match argument, Heat agreed to put the belts up. The Steiners continued to beat Heat all weekend until the final show of the tour on July 27 in Dayton, where Heat regained the belts when Stevie Ray hit Rick over the head with the title belt, leading to the pin. This has me thinking about titles changing hands on house shows, and house shows are kind of a stuff of a bygone era at this point. One that comes to mind, I don't think it was a house show, but it was on a Shotgun Saturday Night where Edge won the IC title from Jeff Jarrett. I kind of like that they did this in between Nitro tapings. What do you think about that, Chad?
Yeah, I like it. I'm in for it. Yeah.
They addressed it on the show too. It wasn't like they ignored it just for the live audience. They said, wow, we had a crazy weekend with the tag titles, and they showed that the titles had changed hands. So I think it makes people want to show up to these live events, and that was a huge part of the profit that these companies had, was the gate at these house shows. So what a better reason. I mean, you don't have to change your booking plans. You have 3 shows, figure it out, get the titles back to where they were, but have some things happen on the show where you feel like you have to be there.
Yeah, I think they have to do that. They have to make you feel like things can happen, because I think that's why the house show kind of died off in recent years because you felt like nothing ever happened. But back then, that was what you wanted. You want draw the crowd in, and I think this helps it because you don't know what's going to happen there.
100%. I mean, remember when Jeff Hardy beat Triple H at a house show and won the IC title? It was huge, and they even brought it into the following Raw. I think it was. It might have been SmackDown, but it was such a big moment to happen, and it's totally. I think that's where the downfall of the house show is because nothing happens. It's just like going to see the circus. You know, the elephant doesn't kill the clown. And you're just sitting there watching him jump around.
Yeah. Well, this weekend, not that anyone even knows this because I haven't even hyped this up, but in Atlantic City, WWE's in town, and so is GCW, and they're having Sunday Stunner. They're in a small arena. I think it's like 4,000 people fit in there. It's a live event, so not being filmed at all. Have some good matches, Riddle and Seth Rollins, and I think the U.S. title's on the line. Why not have a title change hands there? It like makes people want to say, when we come to your town and we're not on TV, you have to come see it because it's.
Yep.
I understand it's for reps and figuring out how these guys can work for the pay-per-views later on in the month, but it's good for fans to go there and feel like they're seeing something special. And I think in Atlantic City, in a small, intimate crowd, really cool to see.
Yeah, it's one of those I was there moments, you know, and you had to be there for it. You know, there's no changing it. You're not going to see it on the network in a week. You know, it's just like, shit, I was there for that. It was a monument, you know?
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the last part of the newsletter where we discussed everything that went on the Nitro with the whole melee and Rey Mysterio Jr. So we'll talk about it as it comes closer, but Rey Mysterio Jr. jumped off a guardrail and Kevin Nash caught him and torpedoes his head into the trailer. It's now known as the lawn dart incident. The outsiders, the only ones that were there were Nash and Hall, but in storyline, we were supposed to believe Hogan and a fourth person were involved. So Meltzer said, I guess it's the best angle Hogan has ever done, and he probably wasn't within 3,000 miles of the place. They all jumped in a limo with Randy Savage on the roof and drove away. So I was going to clip the 83 weeks audio from how Eric Bischoff describes it, but I have the quote here instead because the audio was a little craggly, and the way he talks, he kind of draws on a little bit. If you guys listen to 83 weeks, I think it'd be better if I just kind of pick and choose some quotes here. So he had said, and I quote, "That scene was so believable that shortly after Nitro went off the air again, I've told this story, I'm going to keep it short, but we're hearing sirens, I thought somebody at the park had a heart attack or fell off a ride or whatever, or died of heat stroke. So I'm hearing these ambulances and noticing cop cars are showing up, and they're pulling up backstage or the production area of our set and asking if everybody's all right. And, everybody's nervous, and I'm thinking, what the hell?" As it turned out, some of the residents around the park in Orlando who were watching Nitro live thought that the scene was so real, they called the cops, and they really thought there was an attack taking place behind the scenes. And it's completely out of control, and people called 911. It was so awesome, and I think that's the reality of the moment when you can trigger people or engage the audience to the extent and make them believe what they're seeing is real and create that real kind of emotion. In this case, it was panic that would have inspired someone to call 911. So, Chad, I ask you, when you watch this again, does it live up to the reality blurring the line, or does it not age as well? Because you watched it live. So did you, Mike, so I'll let you get to it in a sec.
So are we diving deep into this segment here or when we break down the Nitros?
We will, but I also just wanted you to kind of take Bischoff's cue there and talk about how it blurred the line. Because people forget that this was something that never happened. And we'll talk about that more in depth as we get to it.
Okay. At the time, like I said, I was 13. No. This was July of 96, so I would have been 12. I was 12 at the time. Dude, I bought this shit hook, line, and sinker. I was a little mark, man. This was so well done. I mean, I have so many notes on this. This was like...
There he is.
There you go. Brian Pillman, baby. This is in the running for one of the... I had forgot how good it was. I think I've maybe watched this episode maybe one other time when I first got the network, when it first launched. But I forgot how well done this is. This is never done. This wasn't just a segment. This wasn't a, hey, cut to the back, Kevin Nash lawn darts. This was... Let's go ahead and say it. This was the whole episode.
Yeah.
Even the matches that happened were worked into the storyline of having to be cobbled together because of the wreckage that was done in the back. Matches that were planned had to be thrown out because guys were injured from this attack. The beauty of this being sold and me buying in as a young fan, everyone in this segment was acting their ass off. When they cut back, okay, so the incident happens, they go to commercial break. When they come back, you've got Sting, Luger checking on guys. You've got the Horsemen checking on Arn. Woman is acting her ass off. I mean, I'm totally bought in. Woman is just selling this shit. Then you've got Alex Wright over there checking on a dude. You've got Eddie with Ray. You've got medical personnel flooding in. Everyone, no one is giving the giveaway. Everyone's in it. Everyone's bought in, which makes me buy in. And the way I kind of want to save this for the episode, but I just have to say it right here. The thing that sold this the most for me, the thing that really, like, all the calamity in the back, the chaos, everyone acting their asses off was great. But the moment where I was like, oh shit, they got me, was when they went from hour 1 to hour 2 and Bobby Heenan and Bischoff are out there, but Shivani and Zbyszko are still there. And Heenan is having a discussion with Bischoff on air where he's like, I don't feel safe doing my job. And the Brain is killing it. Like you feel that he is very scared. He's worried about the situation, and he storms off and leaves. And Bischoff kind of looks at Shivani like, I'm going to need you guys here. And just the solemn nature of, like, I can't stress enough how well Bobby Heenan, Bischoff, all of these dudes pulled me in. Even watching it today, like I rewatched it today. Unreal. Like it still holds up. I love this segment. I think it's one of the landmark backstage angles of all time.
Yeah, Heenan definitely had his fear of being touched because of the Brian Pillman thing. He has the neck injury and he feels like he'd have paralysis. He says this in other shoot interviews where he panics because if he takes the wrong bump, he can be paralyzed for life. So there is that level of, if you are a smart fan watching Nitro, you kind of know that in your head because that Pillman incident happened earlier that year and it was well known. So they really played into it. And man, you said it perfectly. It broke the fourth wall for wrestling because wrestling kind of happened in 3 different areas: the interview station with Mean Gene, the ring, and kind of just like the backstage area, but it was like kind of staged. You think about WrestleMania interviews where it's Sean Mooney and like the lockers with like the schedule kind of tilted or whatever. This broke the fourth wall. We weren't supposed to see the production truck. We weren't supposed to see the guys getting changed. And it becomes commonplace because the Attitude Era broke all those walls down. But this was the first time that reality blurred in because they were trailblazing. That was something that can't be understated or overstated, I should say. They were trailblazing, and this is the first of its kind. So the first is usually the best, and it holds up.
It was so well mapped out too, because when all the chaos is going in, you're seeing the fire truck roll in the background. You're seeing not an ambulance backing up into the fucking loading dock at a Raw. You know, you're seeing the fire truck. You're seeing medical personnel. I mean, the cops. Like,
perfect.
Man, it's so good. It's so well done.
Yeah. All right, so let's not give any more away about the episode. Let's get our fix, and we're going to talk about the Nitros from the 22nd and the 29th. Hogan, lead us in. All right, so as mentioned, we are talking about WCW Monday Nitro from July 22nd, 1996 from Orlando, Florida, Disney MGM Studios. Our current champions are the WCW World Champion, The Giant, who won it back on April 29th. WCW US Champion is Ric Flair, who won it back on July 7th. Our tag team champions are now Harlem Heat. They won it on June 24th. And the World Television Champion somehow is still Lex Luger. I don't know what's going on with that. And the Cruiserweight Champion is Rey Mysterio, who won it back on July 8th. So those champions are there, and I think between the episodes we'll see the switching of the belts, and I think we're going to have a reset of Harlem Heat being champion and their reign becomes 2. So hour number 1 begins. We have Tony Schiavone, Larry Zbyszko leading us in, and they show Muhammad Ali to open the show.
Biggest humble brag of all time to kick off the show. Hey,
100%.
The Atlanta Olympics are going on. We also had Muhammad Ali at our show.
And they also show Shaquille O'Neal, and they announced that he signed with the Lakers, and they make sure they mention that he showed up at a WCW show too. And again, this is ahead of its time because the relationship we see, obviously WrestleMania has all the athletes and the celebrities and all that, but to have these guys kind of involved in the programming to the level where Shaquille O'Neal and Muhammad Ali were at one point, and go back to the year after with Diamond Dallas Page and Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman, all that stuff. They're kind of trailblazing in that way too. It may not be the best quality for fans, but they're definitely blurring the line. And breaking news, I mean, him signing with the Lakers was a big deal back in '96.
Yeah, huge.
So we have a flashback to last week's Nitro where Hall and Nash covered up the WCW letters with bed sheets that were spray painted New World Order, NWO. Mike and I talked about that. What were your thoughts on them using the bed sheets? That's a forgotten thing. We always think about the spray paint. The bed sheets were a nice little touch, I think.
It was a nice touch. It just cracks me up because they're like, when they desecrated this, it's like they draped a bed sheet over the WCW letters. Settled down. All you had to do was pull the bed sheet off. There wasn't any real damage done. But yeah, I mean, stuff like that is what you tuned in for during this storyline. What's Hall and Nash going to do?
Yeah.
All right, so to lead us in, Mike, lead us with our first match, and we're going to get our whistles immediately. We got a DQ finish, so lead us in with this match and tell us what happened.
A whole lot of nothing happened. Let's just start off with that. We had Scott Norton versus Squire David Taylor with Jeeves. A minute and 45 seconds. It was just the shits. Well timing for a wet whistle. That's what I got to say to that. Listen, I'm not the worst Scott Norton fan, but I'm not the biggest Scott Norton fan. Squire David Taylor, drizzling shits. We can easily move on to this. I'm great.
So, correct me if, am I to believe tossing someone over the top rope was grounds for a disqualification at that time for some matches? Because that's what it seemed like. He got tossed over the top rope and it was a DQ.
I know at a certain point, I think Bill Watts back in the NWA, he had the rule, if you got tossed over the rope, it was DQ, but I didn't think WCW had that rule at this point. I mean, you got the luchadors diving over shit. So it's kind of confusing.
Lost in translation. They had a lot going on, especially with filming these Disney shows. So I think they were just trying to wrap shit up quick, but also get you some screen time. Go on, Scott Norton, go out there for a minute and 45 seconds.
Unless I missed the low blow or something, but it seemed like he was DQ'd for the over the top rope. I have to go back and check it out, but
I think you're right.
Yeah, it was weird, bizarre. But let's take a shot for that. I mean, Scott Norton, David Taylor, wherever you guys are, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing better than we were watching that match. All right,
brother.
That's it. That is a great koozie with flair.
It is. I need to find one of those.
Wrestler.
Shot nostalgia is Flair country. All right, cheers, guys. We do have a few shots to take, so let's pace ourselves here on shot nostalgia. All right. We have a Four Horsemen T-shirt commercial, which is cool. And speaking of the Four Horsemen, everybody but Flair is sitting over at the catered table, and they're just hanging out, and they're wondering where is Ric Flair. Arn Anderson covers for him. Mongo mentions the Outsiders when nobody was talking about them, and Benoit has a little trouble ending his promo. Nice little segment. Mike and I are big fans of the Flair table, the little VIP section. Do you remember this fondly, Chad?
the fruit platters and the candelabras on the it's just ringside. The girls are hanging out. Deborah, Woman, Miss Elizabeth. I love this type of shit, man.
Yeah.
This is great. This is great.
The best.
We have our next match here. It's Conan and VK Wall Street, Chad. If you want to take the lead here with our Mexican World Heavyweight Champion, that, he's not really a Mexican World Heavyweight Champion, but he's a champion in our hearts, Conan.
So Conan picks up the win. I thought it was a decent match. I mean, it wasn't like setting the world on fire. VK Wall Street, a lot of people know him as IRS. I find it funny that the VK Vincent Kennedy, kind of a shot at Mr. McMahon. I love watching Conan matches, man, because this is prior to his a Viva la Raza before he started donning the gangbanger situation.
Yeah, filthy animals.
Yeah. I love it. I think IRS is Mike Rotunda, super underrated worker. You're always going to get it. It was just a very sound match to me, mixed in with a little bit of the power of Conan. I enjoyed it. I would give it, if I'm going by the broken VCR scale, I would give it a high okay time.
Listen, I mean, I think they would sign up for that because a lot of these matches on Nitro leave us wanting more. I was mentioned with the Scott Norton and David Taylor match. But Conan, in context of 1996, is a huge star to the point where in Mexico he can't walk around. They call him the Mexico's version of Hulk Hogan as far as wrestling goes. And I think maybe WCW didn't utilize his full potential because they could have had a huge transcendent international star. And he's every bit as advertised. He has the body type. He has the in-ring. He has a presence about him. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy him, and I did not expect to enjoy him going into this year. He was definitely not on my radar as far as who I would enjoy, but he's been a highlight every time he's on our screen.
And later on,
he's doing more.
Yeah, and later on, he proves not only all the superlatives that you just gave him, but he proves in a year or so, he proves he can fucking crush it on the mic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So he's a big star that they kind of missed on, I think.
And later on in his career, I mean, he helps book Lucha Underground. I know he's involved in AAA now or CMLL. I think it's AAA. So he has a mind for the business as well. So he's still giving back to this day. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, fun little note when I was watching this. My wife was just sitting there playing video games on the other TV, and she looked over and she was actually watching the match. She goes, "Man, I really like that guy." It's like, where's he? And I was like, "Oh, that's Conan." It's like he doesn't do shit anymore. He books, and like he's just an old man. She's like, "Man." She's like, he's got presence, like with the tassels and shit. She's like, I like the ring gear. I was like, God damn right, man. I was like, it's fucking Viva la Raza.
I forgot to put the Nitro results on the bottom. Here we go.
Boom,
I took a shot and I forget all my job duties here. All right, so we have Okerlund meeting up with Sting, Luger, and Savage, and they just talk about wanting to beat up the world, specifically Hogan and Flair. So, just more stuff, building unity with WCW and making sure that they're a united front. We get another Glacier commercial, and he's revealed to be essentially Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. This is the first time we see the whole costume, video game series in human form. Yeah, kind of missed the boat here. I know Mike is a huge Ray Lloyd fan.
Love it.
But you put this in 1995, 1994, when that game came out, I think this would have caught fire. But it's like wrong place, wrong time. He still hasn't debuted, and they're completely shifting towards reality-based programming where a guy dressed as a blue ninja is not really going to get over in this culture.
I will Vince McMahon Glacier all day. It's good shit, pal. I fucking love it.
If I had to pick, I'm more of a Mortis guy.
I love Mortis too, but if Glacier didn't walk, Mortis wouldn't have ran.
That's true. That's true.
Oh man, if this wasn't called the Lauren Dart incident, I would name the episode that. I would. We have a video package for the equivalent of WCW's Job Squad, which is Bright Gomez, Renegade, and Powers, and they get a video package of them walking on the beach and taking their shirts off, wearing cool shades. This was the most 90s shit I think I've seen on everything. Everyone had a body aside from, I think it was Renegade had a little bit of a gut, easy for me to say, pal, but everybody else was shredded. This is a jobber team that was going to get squashed. They don't because of what happens next in this match. But what did you think about this video package?
I was howling. I was like howling because, first of all, I know exactly where they're at. They're at the beaches outside of the Grand Floridian Resort inside Disney World. And the thing that popped me the most, total 90s, it kind of reminded me of the American Males entrance video. But I love when they come back from the package. The only thing Shivani says is, well, there you have it. I was like, that's the perfect way to come back from that. He just buried it.
Man, if anything, if people want to hate on AEW, at least this brought us back Tony Schiavone into our lives because the guy is an absolute gem.
So good.
Yeah.
This match, as I mentioned, has the team. I'm sorry, Mike. Continue about the.
It had a 1990s Sunny D commercial all over it. Like, man, I'm feeling parched. Well, let me bring out this Capri Sun, bro. And it's like, yeah, fuck yeah.
So we have this next match, which is an 8-man tag. We have Kevin Sullivan, Hugh Morris, the Barbarian, and the debuting Leprechaun with Jimmy Hart versus
God.
Alex Wright, Joe Gomez, Renegade, and Jim Powers. It goes through a no contest, so thankfully we have to take a shot here. But wow, I mean, the booking, you see there has to be two people that are sitting in rooms like, all right, you take this end of the card, we'll take the other. And it's so diametrically different than what they're doing with the New World Order. Maybe it's purposeful to make the other New World Order stuff feel special because of what's going on in the card. The Leprechaun, are we kidding right now?
This is what's weird about this time. Like, 96 is truly the year where 93 to 95 shook hands with 97 to 98. Like, you've got shit that should not be on the show in this corner, and then you've got shit that should not be on the other show in this corner, and we're just going to throw the Leprechaun in with Hall and Nash. Like, two just polar opposite styles of storytelling. The Leprechaun, I think, the Dungeon of Doom, man.
Yeah.
Not my bag.
No, never was my. Even covering this whole thing, it's one thing I wish we could just black out from WCW history. It was besides the Barbarian and Ming, like that's the two.
Oh,
good
they're
things that came
badasses.
out of it. Yeah,
I love
absolutely. But this Dungeon of Doom thing can go to the fucking woods.
It's a campy way of thinking that, like, Kevin Sullivan thinks it's the most badass, awesome booking, and it just comes off as goofy, and he's the only one in the room that doesn't know it.
Yeah.
I'm sure Hugh Morris knows it. The Barbarian has to know it. Maybe the Leprechaun doesn't know it. Did you guys recognize who the Leprechaun was? Maybe you did, Mike, because of the fact that we've been watching 96. Did you recognize who it was?
I wasn't paying that close attention. I was more caught up in the production truck, brother.
Gotcha. So it was Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker, who
I was going to say that.
Oh, that little boy.
So Dwayne Bruce, who's been on WCW television, and he got the honor of being billed the Leprechaun for a short period of time. And this was the precursor to the Hornswoggle character. There's a lot of parallels, and not a good thing. Someone over at Nitro must have been watching. Someone over at WWE must have been watching.
Oh,
Nitro.
this is some total Vince shit. Vince
Yes.
loved this angle.
Yeah.
The biting of the ankles, the biting of the ass. So what are we doing? Like, this is all right, but
It's all Hugh Morris's fault.
Chad, lead the way with the production truck and tell me about, I guess, everything that went on middle of the match.
So we cut into the back and we see that it's Hall and Nash have commandeered the truck, and the commentary's selling it. This is the stuff that makes the first 4 months of the NWO reign so good. It's these little segments commandeering the climbing up, putting the sheets over the WCW logo, getting into the production truck, showing up, taking everybody out in the back. They're doing a great job of threading throughout the episode. Like, I think it's a genius booking move because you're putting it in the middle of a match and you cut back. So as a viewer, you can't turn away because you don't know when they're going to cut to Hall and Nash. So you feel like you have to stay because at any moment they could throw to a little 20, 30-second spot showing them doing something like this. It was very small. It was very minimal, but it just goes to show you how much punch you can have with very little time if done correctly.
Yeah. I love pan to the crowd. Pan back. All right, let's check out the entranceway. All right, bro, pan back to the crowd again. Get these marks in here. Fucking great, man.
So good. Anytime you can get Hall and Nash bantering, because this was them at their height, especially, like, I know everyone, I'm a bigger Scott Hall fan than Kevin Nash fan, but watching this episode really showed me how I had forgotten how fucking witty and sharp Kevin Nash was in during this era. He was so spot on.
So good. So the match went 5 minutes and 29 seconds, and we get a DQ, so we do have to take a shot of nostalgia.
Woo!
So grab your drink of choice.
While we're prepping, I just want to say that the Kevin Nash and Scott Hall give me mad Statler and Warnoff from the Muppets vibes. Like they're just like, yeah, fuck this.
Yeah.
It's the best shit ever. But cheers to the bad guys, brother.
The bad guys.
I'm gonna grab a beer. I'll be right back. Continue, boys.
You take
All
your
right,
time,
so
sir.
we have a
Go on.
WCW Saturday Night commercial in between, and then we
Fuck
lead
this
into
commercial.
Diamond Dallas Page versus Prince Iaukea. So this is the Nitro debut for Prince Iaukea. Page tosses Iaukea to the floor after a tilt-a-whirl slam. Iaukea comes back with a springboard crossbody for 2. Diamond Dallas Page says enough of that. Hits a diamond cutter for the win. 1 minute 39 seconds. Another week, another diamond cutter, another win for DDP. This is just serviceable at this point. They want to get DDP over, and it's working, I think.
Did this match start like in the middle of it too?
Yeah, they didn't have entrances for them at all.
No, it was just like, what the fuck's going on? And it was like, boom, and then that terrible music that WWE put on for Diamond Dallas Page, it pisses me off every time I hear it.
Yeah, the cheap Nirvana ripoff.
But it's worse than what WCW's cheap Nirvana ripoff was.
Yeah, it's the ripoff of a ripoff. It's like when you make a
Yeah.
copy of a copy and it's like a little more faded. That's exactly what it is.
Deteriorated a little bit more. Bro, let me tell you something, brother. It's the diamond cutter. No, it was a quick, easy match. I thought Prince Iaukea looked great.
Yeah, I mean, I remember him pretty fondly, and I was again say this week after week. There's 17 weeks in at this point. WWF kid growing up, but Prince Iaukea I do remember, and it's like someone if I saw him on the street walking around, I wouldn't have recognized him. But now that I'm watching him in the context of WCW, I'm like, holy shit, I used to really like this guy. So,
Yeah, no, he did that awesome jump off the top rope, from the apron and did the crossbody DP. I thought it looked great. I thought there was a lot of good spots in this match, even though it was a minute and 39 seconds and had no intro.
Well, Mike Belcaster, we have the debut of Chavo Guerrero Jr. on Nitro and WCW taking on Dean Malenko, if you want to lead us through that.
My goodness, this was awesome and took me so far away from what I was expecting. I see baby Chavo looking like a sweet little dude, it was
Very young.
Very, very young. Like he had to have been like early 20s, very early 20s, if not earlier than that. But what a way to debut on Nitro. You put him up against the man of 1,000 holds, Dean Malenko, the Iceman, but not enough to hold him down. Match ends with a Texas Cloverleaf, little tappy, tap, 8 minutes and 10 seconds. A huge match for Chavo, especially on a debut match. I mean, we just watched a bunch of matches that went like under 5 minutes, and you give Chavo a good 8 minute and 10 second running. I think it was good shit, man. I love watching Dean. Chavo, obviously, of the Guerrera, history. So it was good shit, man. I think Chavo looked great. Good debut. And obviously we've seen where it put Chavo in history.
So one thing I did notice was midway through the match, they went into hour 2 and they didn't give a shit that there was a match. Fireworks go off. They lead into hour 2 and they changed the commentary team midway through the match. So they went wide for the fireworks and show the match. So this was WCW kind of, you know what, we're going to get our shit in no matter what. But it also played into the kind of the chaos going on with the production truck, that everything was off kiltered.
Yeah.
And even small things like that Hall and Nash aren't involved in, they kind of messed up the production value. And I think you can, even when they're not involved, they are involved. So it's a good way to put them over. And this match was good. The one thing that WCW does that AEW has been doing, people losing on their debuts. And I know that I'm conditioned with my Fed brain that I'm still trying to get over. I'm in therapy for it to get rid of Fed brain. But man, there is a lot to be said about debuting and looking good in a losing fashion. I mean, it didn't make Chavo look bad, but Dean Malenko took him to the limit, and they both went back and forth. But I'm not used to seeing debuts and having the person lose.
Yeah, I mean, he's a baby. Chavo is literally a youngin here. Dean Malenko's probably got like 5-6 years on him easily, if not
He's
more.
a step above just an enhancement guy.
Yeah,
At this
absolutely.
point.
Yeah,
But,
true.
I mean, he looked great.
So Ray lost in his debut. Psychosis lost in his debut. Chavo lost in his debut. And it's something to be said about the Cruiserweight division. I think wins are interchangeable. Everyone eventually finds their way to the same level. And that's very good for the Cruiserweight division because the title feels like it can change hands anytime it's on the line.
Yeah.
100%.
All right, so we have hour 2, as I mentioned. Eric Bischoff and Bobby Heenan take control. Chad, I'll let you take control with Ming versus Ice Train.
When I was a kid, I liked Ice Train. I'm not gonna lie. Big dude, I didn't mind this match. I mean, I think they're putting Ming into situations where he doesn't have a lot of chemistry with these dudes, but I think the sheer brutality of Ming is very interesting. Obviously, we had Scott Norton having his feud with Fire and Ice, former partner. He comes out, kind of gets the DQ, so we're going to have to queue up a shot for that from the Scott Norton interference. I know everyone, King Haku. No, it's Ming to me. Ming was scarier.
We have the shirt. We have
the shirt. It's Ming or go fuck yourself at the tavern.
That came out of a very pure conversation with me, Sneed, Chad, and Tom. And Tom's like, I love King Haku. We're like, fuck you, man. It's Ming.
It's fucking Ming, dude. It's Faces of Fear. I'm sorry, but with the flowery shit and the little crown that he would wear as King Haku, he's a badass no matter what. But Ming to me was scarier. Black tights, the Tungan death grip. I mean, this guy, I love Ming, man. I love Ming. We need a just his face on a t-shirt, like that's the t-shirt we need. But Faces of Fear. The thing about this match, though, the match was two big dudes kind of slapping meat into a DQ. But the thing about this that I thought was more interesting was during all of these matches, the commentary are constantly reminding you of the New World Order. Yeah. It's constant. It's threaded throughout.
It's on the brain.
And right here, they're already selling who's the fourth guy.
Yeah. They're
planting that seed in your head. We know who the third man is, which leads me to believe they had this mapped out that's going to become a running theme in Nitro now is who joins the New World Order. Because they're already, I think someone says, who's the fourth guy going to be? And then Heenan is like, fourth guy, who's going to be the fifth guy, the sixth guy? They're already laying the groundwork for those cliffhangers of like, who's going to remove the shirt and show Mike's t-shirt underneath. So I love that. That's something with watching these old shows. We get caught up in the matches, the bell to bell, but it always intrigues me about the commentary, how they're telling those stories through the commentary, like how knowing what we know now and how everything lays out and goes. It's really fun to listen to Bischoff, Schiavone, Zbyszko, Heenan planting those seeds. Very subtly, like at the time you're a kid, it's just commentary that's kind of flowing over you. But now as long-term fans, we hear those little nuggets and we're like, man, they're really setting the stage for what's to come.
Absolutely. I love that line too. Who's the fourth? Who's the fifth? Who's the sixth guy? Heenan is so fucking good, man, on the mic.
Yeah. So good.
And you could have had a better, I can't say he's a face, but I guess he's a face in this instance, but you couldn't have a better pissed off, angry face commentator going against this faction because he's just like, fuck these guys. What do you think's gonna happen? And you're like, you feel it because you're like, okay,
he's scared.
Yeah,
we've never seen. Heenan always has one up his sleeve. He's always got that upper hand. This Heenan, it's like he's no longer. It's a very interesting Bobby Heenan during this period that needs to get more spotlight. Is he's not the classic WWF Weasel at this point. He is a WCW guy. He's standing up for the company through his commentary, and he's scared of what's to come of the NWO. And Heenan, I can't put him over enough because his level of fear of the unknown of what these outsiders are going to do, that pulls us in and makes us fearful of like, fuck, what is going to happen? I'm feeling what Bobby's feeling.
It's awesome. So let's feel these shots right now. I know you just refilled your drinks.
Yep.
And we have for Ming defeating Ice Train via DQ. That's 3 DQs. This is the most DQs we ever had in one Nitro. So
we're feeling the fire and ice. Definitely the fire more so than the ice.
Yeah.
So cheers. We'll get to our last shot eventually. There are 4 in this show if you guys are following along with us. All right. With that being said, we have another recap video of the NWO. showing how they were formed at Bash at the Beach and all their shenanigans from now until then. Chad mentioned it, keeping them on the brain. Even when Hogan's not on our screen, they make sure that he's very present in your brain, which is done really well.
Yeah.
So next match here, and I'll take control of it. And lucky me, it's Eddie Guerrero defeating Psychosis in a thing of beauty. 7 minutes and 24 seconds. Eddie gets the win. They're building up Eddie for Hog Wild, taking on Ric Flair for the U.S. title. One thing that caught me by surprise was the Eddie chants that were coming up. And, you know, we think about Eddie's main event run through WWE in 2003 when he won the title and went into WrestleMania, 2004, I should say, went to WrestleMania 20 as champion, defending against Kurt Angle. You felt like it was the fans finally got behind him, but that's not the case. In WCW, he was beloved. And Psychosis, and I mean, Eddie has chemistry with everybody here. And we mentioned Psychosis got some huge love from Terry Taylor during the newsletter. And you could see why. I wouldn't say he's the best worker ever, but Psychosis is very ahead of his time as far as his experience goes. And Eddie can make anyone look like $1 million. And I know this is a side story, but it reminds me of an interview that CM Punk did when he talks about his time in Ring of Honor. And Eddie had in 2002 got suspended for drug use. So he was fired from WWE. So he just wanted to work some dates, and he worked Ring of Honor. So at the time, Punk was champion. So he wanted to wrestle in Ring of Honor, and Eddie Guerrero came into town and wanted to wrestle CM Punk. And Punk's like, I thought I was good. Then I got in the ring with Eddie and then realized I have so much more to learn, and I'm dog shit compared to Eddie. And the things that Eddie is able to do with nuance, he's so good. This was an excellent weekly dose of cruiserweight action that's continued to cement it as a staple in the show. And what's really evident is that they actually they treat it with significance and importance. And I think that's what was lost in a lot of different of these other divisions in other companies, be it AEW with the TNT division, or even WWE with their cruiserweight division back in the day when they brought the title over, or the light heavyweight championship when Taka was the champion at WrestleMania 14. It never felt important. To me, watching this, it feels like the cruiserweight division is very prestigious, and it actually feels like equivalent to their world championship, that it's just because these guys weigh a certain amount that this is their biggest prize. And Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Psychosis, Dean Malenko, they all feel like they're huge parts of the show. And I think the quality of the matches, say it week after week, you tune in for all these guys, the big stars, the Savages, the Hogans, the Flairs. You stay for this match. This is what draws you in. There's a lot of bullshit and all the gagas we say, but man, when you're here locked in, 7 minutes of just pure action, it is unreal what these guys are doing in the ring in 1996.
Yeah, these were the matches that were. I mean, look at this card. We're getting 3-minute matches, 1-minute matches, 5-minute match. A lot of just kind of forgettable shit as far as like work rate, match quality. The cruiserweight division was what you, as far as bell to bell stuff during this time. This is what you came for.
Yeah,
100%.
No, absolutely,
and it's huge, man. It's huge for the brand, because it's not just bogged down with guys that don't have the work rate. And I think there's a time and place for that. And I think that gets it gets misspoken a lot, where people say everyone needs to have a 5-star technical match. That's not the case. On your show, there has to be sports entertainment.
I don't know what you guys think as far as like when you look at specialized divisions within pro wrestling companies over the course of history, you know, whether it be a tag division, a women's division, a cruiserweight division, whatever. I think the WCW 96 to 98 cruiserweight division has to be a top 5 all-time division in pro wrestling.
Easily. Mount Rushmore shit.
Yeah.
Like you can't get better. Like not spoiling anything for later, but this is like the best match of this 2 shows. Like, this is so fucking good. And like, you got some of the best workers, and these guys are babies, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how old is Eddie at this time? Maybe 25. You know, Psychosis probably same age. These guys are fucking putting out clinics, and like I said, it'll hold up with anything that you can see the Lucha Brothers do, the Young Bucks. They set such a fucking roadmap for pro wrestling, quality pro wrestling. It doesn't matter. Like, these two have no story here, but you're drawn to it. You're loving it. You know, it's so captivating, and that's what stands the test of time. We go back and watch these things. Yeah, we got a lot of big angles going on, but this is the shit. This is the filling in the sandwich, man. This is your fucking your roast beef on top of the bread.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
Really think about this division, though. You know, we're talking about the Psychosis and the Eddie, and obviously Rey,
Ultimo Dragon,
fucking Jericho.
Yeah,
he's an all-timer right now, and this was him at the beginning of his career. In the first 6-7 years of his career, you're seeing him mix it up with the Malenkos, Reys, Eddies. It's incredible, and it's really it's one of those times. It's a special time in all of those wrestlers' careers because it's that time in your life where you have yet to reach that age where you're not a risk taker. They're still young enough to be throwing their bodies on the line and taking fucking risks and letting it all hang out. They haven't yet started worrying about their bump card. You know what I mean? Like that's not on their mind yet. They're trying to become that next big guy. And I think that's what makes this division special and all-time Mount Rushmore level great, the WCW Cruiserweight division, is because you have future Hall of Famers at the beginning of their career with reckless fucking abandon.
100%. And they're going out there with the chip on their shoulder. They're trying to prove that they could fucking hang with the best of the best, which eventually they all do. Yeah. I mean, short of the Psychosises and the Super Callows and shit like that. But I mean, you got got Jericho, you got Rey Mysterio, you got Eddie, you got Benoit, Malenko. I mean, Malenko didn't accomplish mountains in the business, but I mean, he's still... Dude's got Parkinson's and he's still fucking agenting matches in AEW right now. Fucking legendary shit, man.
Yep. I mean, there's something to be said about the quality of the matches we're getting on a weekly basis and the ability to not have it bleed over into other divisions, where I think what they're doing with the television title here, Lex Luger the champion, and for so long Sting and Luger held the tag titles, and it became forgotten. These guys were cemented in this division. Yes, Eddie's wrestling for the U.S. title, but for the time being prior to this, he was strictly a cruiserweight guy that's going for that title. And I think this is the first time Eddie's jumping out of the division to do it. But it seems like it's a springboard, much like in the early 90s, late 80s, the IC title was that springboard to the main event. It seems like the cruiserweight title, it's let these guys go out there and work their ass off, get over with the crowd, and then go up to, go for the U.S. title, go for the tag titles, go for the world title down the line. Not that WCW eventually allowed them to, but that's a story for another time.
That's a huge nail in the coffin of WCW, is the fact that they held these guys down. If they would have hitched their wagon to the Reys, Eddies, Jerichos, Benoits, Malenkos, this company may have not. There's a fork in the road. They went one way. If they would have went the other way, who knows what could have happened.
Listen, bro.
It's a catch-22 because it was built on the back of these guys, the big stars, the Machos and the Hogans. Hogan, most notably, with coming over from WWF and having full creative control. And we talk about contracts and for talent first discussions and paving the way for talent to have some leverage here. But it gets in the way where Hogan is refusing to do certain things. And we talked about it through the NWO. Bischoff wasn't even sure he was going to do it up until when he came out to the curtain, because of the fact that Hogan could just go back on his word because he had control. And not, give Hogan credit. He negotiated that deal and that's his thing, but it definitely plays a huge part later in life. I mean, down the line, think about Jeff Jarrett laying down for Hogan all those years later because of the creative control.
Yep.
Yeah. 100%, man.
All right, let's move to the main event here. We have Sting, Randy Savage, and Luger taking on Arn Anderson, Chris Benoit, and Steve Mongo McMichael. So before I let you take this, Mike, check out 83 Weeks this week. They talk long form about Mongo and about his introduction to WCW. It is a fascinating conversation with Conrad and Eric Bischoff, and it's very appropriate if you're taking this journey with us about Steve McMichael's introduction into WCW and how he got there from being an NFL Super Bowl champion to being a commentator here, and his appearance at WrestleMania 11, which people forget. He was involved in the Bam Bam Bigelow Lawrence Taylor match with the NFL versus WWF thing. But yeah, I'll let you take the lead on this, Belcaster.
All right, so we got Sting, we got Savage, we got Luger. They defeat Anderson, Benoit, McMichael, the Horsemen with the ladies, the gals. You got woman, you got Elizabeth. It was I'll take a line from Hawk. Man, it was okay. I don't, it went a little long, to be honest. I don't think we really needed this, but I get why they're doing it. This is kind of where there's too much stories going on, because I'm more excited about WCW versus NWO, and then you got, the WCW Loyals versus the Horsemen, and it's like, I could have went either or. It was okay. It wasn't bad. It was a fun match. Luger got the win. Benoit, I can't get over how great Benoit is this young in his fucking career, and it breaks my heart what happened, because this motherfucker looks fantastic. Even going into the next episode, looks amazing. During these last two, and there was one spot, Mongo went to go hit the ropes, and it came mid back, and like his upper body goes too far back, but his lower half stays, so he looks all fucked up. Mongo can't work for shit. Poor Mongo. I love the guy, but Mongo can't work for fucking shit. It was interesting. It was an okay match, but like I said, Luger got the cover. 1, 2, 3. Your WCW loyalists, your homeboys, they won the match. It was okay.
All right, so making sure we give enough time to the production truck and all the Rey Mysterio stuff. We have Gene Okerlund grabbing the winners, talking them, and they vow revenge on the outsiders. So nothing really happened with NWO when Hogan's gone. He's not on the show. A lot of talking. So the show goes up the air. We're out of time there, but we move on to the July 29th episode of 1996, again from MGM Studios in Orlando, Florida. All our champions are the same, but we have Harlem Heat starting a new reign as tag team champions. As I mentioned, they lost the titles on a house show, won them back on a house show on July 27th, 1996. So all our champions are the same. As I mentioned, our number one, Tony Schiavone and Larry Zbyszko starting it out. And we do have WCW Motorsports, which was a nice little nod here, winning a race. It was a Busch race, which allegedly, through my Googling, is not a big deal, but they did run a race. And I remember NASCAR being a huge, not NASCAR or whatever, motorsports in general were a huge thing on these channels. But Atlanta, Georgia, and all that stuff, it's huge there. And I know NASCAR is one of the highest ranking types of sports on television. But it was just funny to see this here on WCW.
my favorite part of the intro is New World Order. Okay, Larry Zbyszko is the best and the worst at the same time, so many times over.
It's all rolled into one, man.
It's all rolled into one. But listen, man, he's discussing his disdain for Hulk Hogan and all of his fucking chromies, but I mean, he says New World Order so many times, and it's just
he's the only commentator that takes the NWO to task on shit.
Yeah,
everybody else, I feel like there's a level of fear, where Zbyszko still gets his shots in.
He's the De Niro of the commentator crew.
Yeah.
New World Order.
We're going to breeze past this opening match. Jim Duggan defeats Mike Emos. It was way too long, 7 minutes and 31 seconds. As Zbyszko says, Duggan has to pull things out of his tights to make up for his IQ, and that is probably all you need to know about this match. Get rid of it. This match is awful. And, Nitro.
He's wrapping that fist up, man.
Nitro has the inability to open shows with hot matches, and I think if you were able to just switch some of the card around, like last week, if you would have opened with Eddie versus Psychosis instead of the Squire Dave Taylor match, it would have a lot more reverence and feel better. But I'm not Eric Bischoff. I didn't win the ratings war for 83 weeks, so maybe I'm not a genius. But we have Gene Okerlund grabbing an interview with Jim Duggan concerning Hogan. I have to mention this. This promo from Duggan is probably the worst promo I've seen on WCW. And man, I mean, he talks about them being friends, and what did you do, Hogan? It's a horrible interview. If you want to skip over that match, but check out the interview. It's a horrible interview. Man.
Yeah.
What is Duggan doing? He's so out of place. He's so out of place.
Title shots in 1996. Title shots. What are we doing?
Jesus.
Multiples, not just one. He's
come on, dude.
Hulk Hogan, I'm telling you, we're friends. He's like the big dumb dog from the Looney Tunes. Like, hey George, how's it going?
Yeah,
I got my 2x4. Let's fucking do it, tough guy. America. It's like, oh god, yeah,
yeah, man.
All right. So we have the biggest match of the night here. Sting, Luger, and Savage taking on Flair, Chris Benoit, and Steve McMichael. Goes to a no contest. I'll let you take the lead on it, Chad, but Shivani is betting the farm that Flair joins the New World Order because of the power they possess, which makes no sense to me, but it's funny. They're just planting seeds all over the place. And how I knew he wasn't joining the New World Order is obviously hindsight, but also makes no sense. He's the most WCW guy there is.
This is a long match.
It is a very long
like how many like what did we sit through? 2 commercial breaks?
Yep.
Like I mean, how long was this, Ace? Did you get the time?
Yeah, 13 minutes even.
Dude, it felt way longer than 13 minutes. Not that it was a bad match. Like, with everyone involved, minus Mongo, all respect to Mongo, but minus Mongo, like, everyone in this is I like. You know, Luger a little lesser, but good match, fun. But I think this match to me, the whole point, and you kind of mentioned it, Mike, in the last episode of Nitro, which I think I take just a little. The reason why they're doing this, I feel like the last episode and this match in particular, it's all to pull WCW together. Like we have the Horsemen feuding with Sting and his boys, Luger, Macho, and there's a lot of, that's our main kind of juggling act right now. But by the end of this episode, everyone's kind of together and everyone has a mutual enemy. And it's kind of like we have to put our shit aside because there's a greater threat at stake. And I feel like this whole episode, especially this match, you know, we're building these feuds with these two teams, but it's all to get to the lawn dart incident. You know, we're getting to that point, and I love how they do this, man, because, like, you know, we're in the middle of this match, and Jimmy Hart starts begging the camera guy, "Come to the back, come to," and I'm like,
Daddy,
when you're watching this when you're watching it for the first time, this doesn't happen a whole lot. So you know something's going on. This isn't a Tony Schiavone yelling out, we got something going on in the back. The camera guy's not even back there yet. Jimmy Hart's out there. Go to the back. You see the camera run off. Then Jimmy Hart gets up on the apron and he's begging Lex, Sting, and Macho to come back. He's talking to them. We can't really hear exactly what he's saying. And then we cut back and you've got Arn laid out. You've got Marcus Alexander Bagwell from the American Males, Buff, who he will become, laid out. You've got Scotty Riggs taken out. Scotty Riggs comes out, gets taken out.
Marcus.
Then the iconic moment, Ray comes out of the production. I don't think it was a production truck. It was like a trailer, maybe like a dressing room trailer.
Yeah, like a dressing room, so they were on set, the backstage lot.
He comes out, steps onto the little tiny porch, steps up onto the guardrails of the porch, jumps off. Nash catches him, lawn darts him into, which is an iconic moment. Outright chaos. And I think all of this match and the episode before, this was all such a great inciting incident. Like this whole lawn dart situation to me is an inciting incident to bond the roster of WCW. Even the Horsemen and Sting's crew. They all have a mutual enemy. I think that's what this match was about. And the Jimmy Hart angle, I'm not a Jimmy Hart fan. Never liked the guy.
We are not either on here.
I fucking hate Jimmy Hart. Like, to be honest, like he's fine. You go to a signing, a Comic-Con, whatever. He's there. I'll get your signature, bud. You're a legend in your own right. But for me, never liked the guy. But I gotta say, when he's on the apron, go, I do feel a sense of urgency. So I did like his performance. I loved this angle, man. I love this match because it led into this big moment we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and the biggest thing from this match, it was a good match aside from, it was long, you're right. There was a lot of chaos in it, and they're building towards that story. I think it has to be those guys in the ring. If it was anybody else cutting away, it has to be them leaving to go there. One thing I pulled away from the realism, and this gets stated in 83 weeks, I know I talk about it all the time, but I'm doing a lot of homework listening to Eric Bischoff because, you know, he's the guy.
Yeah.
So for the first time on television ever, Rey Mysterio takes his mask off, while the paramedics do for him because he has
I
a
have
head
that in my
injury.
notes, dude.
I loved it.
Crazy. Great
Crazy.
spot.
And obviously, we get used to him in WCW taking his mask off in '99, which is a whole different story. Ray's covering his face with the mask being off is a huge thing where people must be watching saying, I mean, it's not wrestling. You know, we think about MJF being wheeled out of Double or Nothing when the oxygen mask is like halfway on his face in the wrong way. That's pro wrestling, but they were treating like a serious injury. And not to mention Arn Anderson on the floor acting like he got shot in the leg. And the best part is, too, we talk about weapons being used in wrestling. Sometimes, and we talk about horror movies, when you don't see the monster, your imagination is so much worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't see anyone get hit with a bat in the beginning. You see them dropping the bats because, you know, if you do it, there's no way it would look as...
The damage has been done.
100%.
Yeah.
And the bats clinging on the floor, they actually sound like aluminum. It's not like the shitty Drew McIntyre Angela sword that's bending on the ropes. It's absolutely... It's chaotic and it feels real, and it's like, oh my god, those bats they're clinking on the asphalt, and those guys are running off, and what the damage that was done was catastrophic. It was awesome.
The sound of the metal on the asphalt instantly triggers in your mind what happened.
Yep.
And there's something about Tony Schiavone. Another thing we talked earlier in the happy hour segment, where there's something selling it and making it real. Tony Schiavone says the line, "We're going to have to stay with this, I'm told."
Yeah.
You know, like, we're not cutting into a match. Like, matches have been put on the back burner. We're staying with this. So when you come back from commercial and we're still there, it's like, what the fuck is going on? You know, that's when you buy in.
Yeah, and I'll give the commentators such fucking high props. Like, from Ray getting his mask off, I think it was Schiavone going, in Lucha Libre, they don't take their masks off. So he's like, this is huge. And then I think it was Zabisco saying, oh, Eddie Guerrero's sitting there. He said, Quattro man. There's a fourth man, God damn it. Like, there was such urgency about it. And like, you could even, like, they cut the Benoit at some point, and he's like he's hyperventilating, crying, like, almost.
Dude,
like,
even Mongo's acting his ass off. He's pacing. Like,
best thing he's done in the business.
Dude, I'm a movie fan to my core, so I'm like looking at their faces, seeing if I can catch any hint of bullshit. These dudes were in it, man. They were in it.
Yeah, Flair getting on the ambulance with Arn,
yeah,
you know, in his trunks, and like that was the whole thing. Like, as you said earlier, when you're watching Ray jump off, the fire truck pulls up, you know, you see the fucking 6 ambulances show up. These guys are Arn Anderson's dying, like literally dying. He's like, Papa, like, you know, he's just hurting, man, and like they did such a good job selling it. And even when the crowd starts turning on it, they're like, boring, boring. And Schiavone's just like, listen, if they had a feed here, they would understand the magnitude of what's going on.
Exactly.
But these guys ain't fucking watching it. And it was so good, man.
Bischoff and Schiavone expertly handled the boring chants because they were like, you know, they kept the solemn tone. Like, we don't have any playback for them. They don't understand what's happening right now, which totally made me bought in. And just to the point when you're talking about Arn selling his ass off, I love when he's selling his ass off. I said she was acting her ass off. Woman's hovering over and she delivers the line, "He said a baseball bat." So, and here's a thing that's very like original. And I don't know if I've seen this in a segment in AEW, WWE since this moment, is when this is all happening, everyone, even the people that aren't like right up in the camera shot, everyone is having conversations.
Yeah. Conversation
is overlapping. And all the conversations are about this moment. So you really get the sense of like, fuck, man, like there's chaos. Like, woman's talking about the baseball bat. You hear someone else say, I think there's a fourth man. Like, you're getting all of this information from all of these, just like, the conversation is so overlapped that you're just hearing these little nuggets from each conversation pop through the segment. And it gives it such a like, man, this is a fucking shoot, dude.
Alex Wright talking to Eddie.
Yeah.
Like when Ray's getting put in the ambulance, he's like, with this terrible German accent, like, no, they're going to take Ray away in the ambulance. It's not going to be good. And Eddie's like, Quattro.
I really think it's one of those situations where everyone fed off of everyone.
It's beautiful.
Like, no one wanted to be the weak link in this angle. So everyone seeing everyone put their all into it. And I think it shows in the commentary team, especially because they're seeing these wrestlers just crush it on the monitor. And they're giving us the lyrics to the music. And that's what brings it out of them, because say what you want about Bischoff as far as a commentator, Bischoff shined in this moment. Fucking chef's kiss. Absolutely. He sold it. He made it seem so legit. Like, I loved this. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
So the rest of the show was supposed to look much different than it was, which added to the realism. We were supposed to get Rey Mysterio wrestling Eddie Guerrero for the Cruiserweight title. The Steiners were supposed to wrestle the American males, and Arn Anderson was supposed to be challenging Giant for the world title. None of those matches happened because guys went off to the hospital. So we get hour number 2 starting, and I'm just going to give you the results of these matches, and we'll go back to talk about the segment again because I think that's
voltage.
We got Rick and Scott Steiner defeating High Voltage in 4 minutes and 46 seconds. Then we have Eddie Guerrero, instead of taking on Ray for the Cruiserweight title, he gets a big win over Big Bubba, 10 minutes and 47 seconds. It's a decent match. It shows Eddie's able to take on main event level guys, or not main event, bigger guys, I should say. In turn
better
of
word
going
choice,
to wrestle for the U.S. title. And the main event, for whatever reason, we have Greg Valentine getting a title shot against the Giant. Lasts a minute and 41 seconds, but this
I got a quick beef with this match. I just have to say, Ace, just really fast.
Go for it.
Greg the Hammer comes out, and instantly when Greg comes out, and I'm not a hammer hater. I'm not a hammer hater. I'm
That's
fine
a
with
shirt right there.
I'm cool with Mr. Valentine. But as soon as he comes out, my ears kind of peak up, and I'm like, that entrance music. He came out to the fucking Hollywood Blondes music.
No way. I didn't catch
that was the Stunning Steve Austin, Brian Pillman, Hollywood Blondes tag team music. If you throw that in your little YouTube, pull up that theme, pull this episode up, because I was like, that's the Blonde. So I had to double check. Yeah, he came. I'm sure it's like WCW stock music, but yeah, that was the Hollywood Blondes theme that Greg the Hammer Valentine came out to.
And it could have been an easily a WWE Network mistake, possibly, but
very true.
Does it fucking matter? No.
That's very true. They could have just threw it in there.
Of it soon. I don't know if you saw the news last night in AEW wrap-up show, but we discussed how Jimmy Hart said in an interview that there's hundreds of WCW theme songs that are not owned by WWE because it fell through the cracks in the deal, so Warner still owns them. So there's a whole bunch of intellectual property underneath, and that Tony Khan's, of course, trying to purchase them. So not that WCW is known for the theme songs aside from the New World Order and the Wolfpack.
Right.
The Four Horsemen has a legendary theme as well. Yeah. But most of their themes, I love Eddie's theme too. I'm interested to see which ones are not under their IP. So that'd be.
I always love Dean's.
Yeah,
Dean's
for sure.
Great.
Dean's is just like the mood. It just fits him. I always loved his theme. I like Crippler. I like Chris Benoit's theme too.
So before we get to the Chaser and talk about all our favorite moments, we do have to mention the first ever black and white New World Order announcement that happened between the Eddie match and the main event. It's fantastic. It is just the mocking the other talent. Hey Lex, what do you bench? So well done, and you could tell that Scott Hall and Kevin Nash are having the time of their lives.
Hulk Hogan quoting Humpty Dumpty, all of Ted's men and all they fall, brother. Like it was great, and of course, it's the first time we see Hogan since all the shit. Like we're getting more fill-ins, but I love the logo of the NWO going across the shirts, hinting at merch. When Hall and Nash are talking, but then you see how appropriate it looks. You're like, God, that looks so good.
Looks so fucking good.
That. The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
and well done, man.
It became the staple. It became, you waited for those little commercials.
Yep.
And I mean, obviously, it really built up this takeover angle, but I love that you brought up, because I have it in my notes too, Ace, like the what do you bench? When I mentioned earlier that I'm more of a Hall guy than Nash, but Nash during this time, his wit and how sharp he was, that fucking line popped me so huge. He's just like, hey, Lex, what do you bench? And you know that's probably something that's an inside joke in the back locker room with the boys.
Yeah.
Because I always heard that Luger was a bit uptight, and you know Nash and Hall's fucking with him.
Yeah.
So it's like, it cracks me up though, man, because you think this is the birth of the cool heel. You could say this vignette is the birth of the cool heel.
Absolutely.
Because like in that moment when these are the invaders, we're WCW fans, we're watching Nitro. These are the bad guys invading. Hogan just told us to stick it up our ass a few weeks ago. And now he's cracking on Lex, and you find yourself laughing. So there's already, even if they didn't mean to do it, I feel like there's already seeds of like, I kind of like these guys. They're fun.
Yeah.
You know?
Cool bad guys. It was good.
And the presentation's so different. And I know it wasn't purposeful to have a show with the Leprechaun on it the week before and then do this, but it actually works really well because it just shows the difference between the two products. And of course, you don't want the shit being muddied with that, you know, we talk about Glacier and stuff that's outdated, but it almost emphasizes how progressive the New World Order gimmick winds up being because of the outdatedness of the rest of the show. And it's done masterfully. And I know it's not
spot
purposeful.
on.
It's not purposeful.
Yeah, you're spot on, dude. These vignettes almost are like a signal of the times are a changing.
Absolutely.
So we do have to take a shot before that DQ finish, so it's our last shot of the night. And we're going to move into the chaser.
You got to talk about the Giant doing the Hogan promo though, real quick.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
true. Yeah, you take the lead on it. Go ahead.
Something big,
Go
G. Ready to roll, all hyped up, you know. And I love that Mean Gene's like, wait, hold on a minute. This is Hulk Hogan shtick, and he goes, yeah, because he's been shoving this shit down your throat and everything, and he wants the fans to hear it. I loved it. I thought this was a really good promo by the Giant. Probably one of his best since we started talking about this fucking whole thing. But like the Hogan impersonation, Mean Gene just like calling it out, and then I'm gonna choke slam him,
dude.
How
crazy is it that this Giant is the Big Show? It feels like two totally different people to me.
Yeah, not even. It's like watching black and white and colored, you know, it really changes the whole perspective.
So
of
different.
Big Show.
And also, I mean, with the Giant, he looks so, and I understand that it's probably thinking too much about something, but he looks so much more polished since he last left for Japan. As time goes on, he's getting better and better. When we saw him debut, where his promos were a little weak, and his promos aren't the best, but his time in Japan was paramount to his success. He was spending significant time over there wrestling their legend and building up a character and understanding how to work a crowd that doesn't speak your language. So it makes you even more presentable in front of the American audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's move into the Chaser, talk about our favorite moments for the last two nights of Nitro. We got a little Bam Bam. We got ECW Season 2 Shot Nostalgia. If you guys missed that announcement, we are doing 1995 ECW, which I'm so looking forward to. Chad, we have
I
to have
can't
you
wait
on
to
for
watch
that
that
as well.
So excited.
So, as always in the Chaser segment, we will pick our favorite part of the two nights of Nitro, whether it be a segment, whether it be a match, or it could be both. I'll let you start, Chad, since you are the guest here.
I mean, it's got to be the Hacksaw Jim Duggan promo, right? I mean, it's got to be the Duggan promo, right?
Guy.
I mean, it's not even. I would be shocked. You could pick Eddie Psychosis, 7-minute, good, really solid 7-minute match. But I mean, you can't watch these two episodes and tell me that it's not the backstage lawn dart incident. You know,
Of course, yep.
Obviously it's kind of thrown on the lawn dart incident, but it's the whole thing. It's not just that moment. It's the whole spectacle of it. The backstage, the ambulances, the fire trucks, all of WCW coming together. the fucking speeding away limo with Macho hanging on the roof. This is high art in pro wrestling.
It really is.
It's hard to know if they actually knew what they were doing as Revolution. And it's hard. You never really know. You're as groundbreaking as you are in the moment.
Yeah.
But this is looked upon with, I mean, it's a sight for sore eyes because it's so good, and it's great. I mean,
imagine a segment like this on a product today.
Unbelievable.
Dude, we
way
would
better, probably.
Fuck, we would be so keyed in on that.
Yeah.
At the risk of starting a larger conversation, I know we have to get out of here in 6 minutes because before our time starts in only 6 minutes, stay tuned on the Tavern for before our
WrestleMania
time,
5.
Yeah, Mega Powers explode. Is there possibly a chance that we have a realistic storyline take place on a television show that could hijack it? I'm thinking the MJF situation with that promo. Is it possible for people to suspend belief and like, wow, that wasn't supposed to happen? Or are we too far gone as wrestling fans?
I think we have a better chance now with the mystique of what's going on with MJF than anything. If MJF comes up and does something like this with who the fuck knows, you're going to believe it because of that last promo. Because you'd be like, oh, he was like, fuck, and Tony didn't fire him. So now MJF's coming back like, fuck this place, flipping over catering, spitting in people's faces. You fucking Mark, like, get the fucking back of the line. If it's done right, I can totally see it happening. But that's the thing. It's got to be done right. And it's going to be hard to do it right where we're all going to be like, what the fuck is this?
It depends on how they film it, too, because the way this was filmed was perfect, that it was interjected in the middle of a match. It was chaotic. It was done on a handheld video camera. If MJF, if you feel like you're supposed to not supposed to see it, like it's a voyeur camera where it's like, we caught a glimpse of MJF. Who the hell was that? We're trying not to show him. I always think about on a baseball game or a football game when there's a streaker on the field, they never show him on the broadcast. So it's not part of the show. MJF shouldn't be shown on the show. And I thought Raw did a good job with Dexter Lumis at a lower level where you felt like you weren't supposed to see him. And of course they spoiled that on social media when they did, oh my God, it's Dexter Lumis, but it felt like he was an invader. And I think that's what WCW is able to do, suspend belief and blur that line because you felt like they weren't supposed to be there because it's like raw footage, Blair Witch type of stuff where it's like on a camera that feels shaky.
Yeah.
Real quick, I think with hardcore wrestling fans, it's a bridge too far. Yeah. The ship is sailed. Hardcore wrestling fans will always second guess, shoot, work, kayfabe, whatever. But with casuals, go to Twitter, man. There are people that still think MJF is going to show up on fucking Raw next week. So with casuals, you could totally spin those motherfuckers. So I think hardcores, those days are done, but you can still trick the casuals.
I mean, you can work. I feel like you can work guys with the dirt sheets if you somehow get Meltzer, Alvarez, and I know it compromises their integrity if you start to have them part of storylines, but imagine for a huge storyline that like the MJF stuff, we see stuff get leaked into the newsletter and have them believe it. It pops up weeks before. MJF's really not with AEW and make it start to bleed into the programming, and then he shows up at All Out.
Yeah,
like,
you got to work the dirt sheets.
Supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And I think that's working social media in the dirt sheets is how you work the intelligent fan nowadays.
Absolutely.
But, to be a casual fan nowadays, I'm jealous. I'm super jealous.
Me too, man.
Right? Forever.
All right, let's go to closing the tab. We'll give our final wrap up, preview next week's episode, and get some updates for what's going on for the Tavern for the rest of the week. All right, we have 3 big episodes coming up, and as I mentioned, stay tuned in 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes. We have Before Our Time, WrestleMania 5, Nick and Anthony coming at you on the Tavern. So just switch over to that little feed. Stay with us. 4 hours of nostalgia, man. You can't get any more anywhere else. It's right here on the Tavern. So next week we're going to be reviewing the August 5th Nitro and HOG WILD live from Sturgis, the motorcycle rally. Hogan gets his world title win as a heel. Episode 19, we have a 3-parter, Clash of Champions 33. 812 Nitro and 819. In episode 20, we have the August 26th episode of Nitro and September 2nd version of Nitro. Real quick, you have a minute, Chad. Get your shit in. Tell me exactly what's going on your end.
Go to theturnbuckletavern.com. All of the shows on there, streaming and podcast form, are well worth your watch. We got toe tags from the Knucklehead Network coming on the debate on Monday. You got Raw down. You got the AEW wrap up. You've got Broken VCR on Tuesday if you're a movie fan. You've got Fig Night on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. We've got so much shit going on. I could just take us into the 2-hour mark, but I'm just going to say go to theturnbuckletavern.com. You won't be disappointed with the content we put out. All of our crew, I think we're 11 deep at this point. Everyone crushes it. A lot of great opinions across the board. Check it out.
Well, I want to thank you guys for joining me, Chad. Amazing to have you on here. You're always welcome to come back whenever you'd like.
I would love to.
For Mike, for Chad, for Ace, this has been Shot of Nostalgia. We got to go. We're out of time.